I'm here today to talk about this extreme divide amongst the people of the U.S. And I'm not talking about politics. Settle down. I'm talking about the Osage people and the Whitewood people. Specifically, Osage versus elm and hickory. Hello, Steve. I'm picking on you. Steve asked me a question, so it's Pick on Steve Day. Everyone pick on Steve. He's an Osage guy, and Osage people are typically draw knife people. That's the game. Osage is good to work with draw knives. Peeling it down to that growth ring, between the different layers, you have that nice foamy section that it basically splits off. And, once you get good at it, you can make an Osage bow relatively quickly. I mean, it's a nice working wood. On the other hand, I'm not so much a hickory guy. I respect hickory. I don't want to slam you. I don't want to bring this political divide into the bow world, but I'm not a hickory person. I'm more of an elm person, between those two interlocking grain woods. They don't split so easy. They don't necessarily work so easy with a draw knife. And that's where the advantage of a nice, sharp, and I've got a Bolota Italian steel, high quality farrier's rasp comes in. It goes through elm relatively quickly. Different kinds of elms, they're all different. Rock elm, if you can get your paws on it, like I told Steve in that reply to his comment, if you can procure rock elm or a hard elm, do it. It's superior to American elm, which is quite a bit softer than rock elm. And it's, they say, through experience, the different elms can vary a little bit. So, personally, I don't see, and I've done a lot of bows in these two woods, a big difference between red elm and American elm. They say the mean streets, the stuff spoken on the mean streets of Michigan is that red elm is harder than American elm, but I personally don't see that much of a difference between the species as much as I see a difference between individuals within those species. But getting back to it, I fought getting a farrier's rasp until somebody I sold 3 bows to said, "John, just shut up. I'm sending you a farrier's rasp." And once I had one of those in my mitts, the world changed. Farrier's rasps are awesome. You buy a farrier's rasp. Now, getting started, you got this big old piece of wood. Pretend that this is much greater diameter than it is. How do I get a bow out of this? Well, I've used a lot of different methods. Do not do what I did. I would clamp it down, and I would use a circular saw, sometimes to rough out bows. I did what I did to get that bulk of wood off, and sometimes a circular saw. It works really good if it's straight from stem to stern. If it's a snake bow, forget it. You might be able to knock some of the wood off with a circular saw. You can't get right close because of that. The blade won't allow you to make twisty turnies like a bandsaw. If you have a bandsaw, you're golden. But not all of us can have a fully fitted workshop. I've used, again, don't do this because it's very dangerous. I probably shouldn't even say this. I've raised the blade all the way in my table saw and used that for a bandsaw before. That's very bad. That's a very bad thing to do because kickback, the potential is great. Hopefully you just click the circuit breaker instead of getting boom, wood in your face. I've thought I broke my wrist one time with a thing being thrown back at me with a table saw, so take those seriously. Chainsaw, the wide curve, if you're good, whatever. But a handy trick is, you want to knock down that piece of wood, whether it's the pie-shaped section of a split stave or whatever, best of luck with an elm. I might rough it out with a chainsaw first, but the old transverse cuts. Now picture this. This is a big section of wood, not necessarily round. This is just a demonstration. What I mean by transverse cuts is you take a handsaw after you drew rough lines in there, and you just saw it down to the lines on either side every few inches, and then you just take a hammer and just knock those chunks off. You always want to work, if it's going to be a deep handle here, and you're cutting it off, you always want to work from the handle out because of the growth rings. You don't want to go into a ring, you want to go away from the ring. And so maybe I would take a chisel and jam it into the curve from the handsaw and just chip it out, working my way from the handle. And that's a respectable way to remove bulk pieces of wood right away. And then once you get down maybe half an inch or so to your lines, it's a matter of technique. You might grab that farrier's rasp and you might be rasping away. It's like I'm not removing a lot of wood fast on this, but technique with a farrier's rasp. And you can also, even with those big teeth, with good technique, have almost a clean surface without tool marks on it. You don't want to take your farrier's rasp and skid it sideways at all. It has to be, straight in and out to get the nicest surface. You can skid it and hit it with the edge to remove more wood, but you're going to have an uglier finished surface. Then you can go back and then be careful with your technique. But yeah, that's about it. Yes, I work Osage. Yes, I use draw knife. But I'm 50-50, draw knife. Well, probably less than that, maybe 20-80. Draw knife, farrier's rasp, more than I use a draw knife. I just like it. Because I tend to work slow. If you work slow, might not make mistakes, stupid hiccups. And yeah, that's about it. That's talking about bows.